All right, welcome to the Young Turks coverage of the inauguration. Thank God it's finally here. Cenk, Uygur, John Iadarola, Frederick Joseph with you guys. We've got a lot of folks that are going to come throughout the day. We've got live coverage throughout the day. We've got Ida Rodriguez and Dr. Rashad Ritchie joining us later. We're going to do, John and I are going to do damage report. John and Anna on the first hour of the Young Turks, Anna and I in the second hour of the Young Turks. Apparently there's some talk of a bet and all that nonsense. So we will get to that a little bit later. But we are going to do a couple of things for you guys throughout the day. Number one is you see in the corner there, the proceedings have begun. And so today is filled with two different things. One is substantive reflection on what happened in the last 4 years and looking forward to what's going to happen in the next 4 years. And when I say looking forward, I mean partly hopeful and partly, well, let's see what happens, right? But also there's the pomp and circumstance. So there's the invocation, there's the speeches, the folks filing in. That's weird that the Clintons are there because I read yesterday at the grocery store that they were have a terrible divorce coming up, and you know, guys, now that when you see stuff on the National Enquirer, I have this thing of like, oh, good old fake news, like old school fake news, as opposed to what we've been living with through for the last 5 years. So you're seeing the Obamas there, obviously the Supreme Court, Amy Coney Barrett, everyone is supposed to be at inauguration. Of course, the one guy who isn't there is Donald Trump. Of course, he ran away to Florida and he used Air Force One, and apparently he took the nuclear football. That's what people were saying. What, they're gonna fly to Florida and fly it right back? So dumb.
I mean, it has to be with him until noon.
Yeah, I get it. It's fine. Believe me, that's the least of our problems. But guys, let's start with this before there's any actual speaking going on. And look, we'll give you guys anything that's relevant, including the prayer, etc. And you're seeing the pictures. But once they get to like nonsense, you know, literal cheerleaders, you know, with the batons and the pom poms and whatever else happens on inauguration day, we're going to talk over it. There's plenty of places to see cheerleaders. Okay, so now let me get started, guys. The last two things that Trump did were pardon a whole bunch of criminals, and I don't just mean like, oh yeah, that guy was up on murder charges, but he was a rapper Jared Kushner knew. I mean, former politicians. I mean, perfect example is Duke Cunningham, clear criminal, committed, you know, like almost everybody there has committed fraud. Steve Bannon committed fraud, etc. He pardoned the swamp on his way out, and if that wasn't bad enough, the very first thing he did was do a lobbying ban on anyone in his administration for 5 years, and he said in the signing ceremony it was to drain the swamp. He undid that executive order as his very last act, saying, oh yeah, we were just lying. The whole time we were lying. We're all gonna become lobbyists and all the swamp is free to go. I've emptied the jails a la Bane in Batman, right? So let me kick it over to John to start with. You know, I'm sure you're not surprised by that.
No, I mean, look, I'm not gonna say that I wasn't surprised by some of, not necessarily some of the pardons, but some of the pardons that didn't exist. And I, you know, especially because we live in a media environment where so many Americans have created a worldview for themselves and follow people in the media who never admit when they were wrong. I love admitting when I was wrong. I thought it was a lock that he would pardon himself. Not that the pardon of himself would actually work, because we don't know. It's treading on new constitutional ground, but I definitely thought he would. I think it's amazing that he didn't. In terms of the pardons that he did do, it is just like if this doesn't get through to some of his people, and it won't, it's so sad because so many, like basically there were a couple of different categories of pardons. There were a few that were, oh, these are genuinely people who should be pardoned or have their commutations. A couple of the community activists are pushing for them, those sorts of things. There's like 5 of those. And then it was a ton of people who committed securities fraud and wire fraud, all the grifters who just defrauded people. Like these are the biggest, most wealthy con men in the country. He let them off, the literal swamp. And then, there were the people who obstructed justice, either directly related to him or in other cases, people who lied to the DOJ, lied to grand juries. So like it's the grifters and the people who obstructed justice, but they will look at this group and think, oh no, that's just fine, he can do that. And it's not like other presidents haven't abused his power. On TDR yesterday, we went through a rundown of Clinton's pardons and commutations. This sort of thing does happen, but it was just so many people who are just literal con men and grifters. Like Steve Bannon, it wasn't just generalized con. He specifically stole from MAGA people who want a border wall, and Trump pardoned him for conning his core people, his core demographic. And I doubt there's really gonna be any self-reflection about what that represents, that he would go for this guy like Steve Bannon, a guy who, by the way, was calling for Dr. Fauci to literally be beheaded just a couple of months ago. We've already moved on from that. And he gets a pardon after stealing money from Trump's most core supporters.
Yeah, but of course, as we all know, his supporters don't want to get it. They like being conned. They're like, oh, tell me pretty little lies about how I'm superior to black people and brown people. The lie is the feature, not the bug. So anytime they're lied to, they're so happy. They're so thrilled. They're like, oh my God, am I really better than other people? I want to be better so much. Let's go oppress other people. I'm here for it. I'll commit violence on your behalf if you want. If in return you just need to rob me of my money, no problem. That's been the history of America all along. Rob poor white people while getting them to hate black people. So, I mean, America 101. So I wanted to show you guys Mike Pence there in the corner. So Mike Pence, the vice president, is attending because luckily he was not hung by Trump supporters who were trying to execute him. So he has survived and is attending the inauguration. Obviously, Trump and Pence had a falling out, if you will, when they tried to have Mike Pence fall out of a tree with a noose around his neck. Literally, they were chanting, hang Mike Pence, and they had a noose. And so Mike Pence, after being buried in Trump's ass for 4 years, realized, oh, you're up there with all the rest of the similar stuff, okay? And he doesn't care about you at all, and he'll drop you in a second if you don't commit every crime in the world for him. And that's what happened. So now, look, if they had actually hung Mike Pence, it would have been a tragedy beyond description for our democracy, let alone for Mike Pence. And I'll never let that go, that he wanted to murder his own vice president. Just be clear about what kind of monster Trump is. But by the way, Pence let it go because he's like, well, my political fortunes. On the one hand, I was gonna get executed, and apparently they were 1 to 2 minutes away from finding him, okay? On the other hand, I still want to kiss the ass of the voters who wanted to murder me. All right, hey, listen, you do you, boo, as Anna would say. So there he is, like, oh, I'm mad at Trump, but I still kind of love everyone who wanted to execute me. Okay, whatever. I don't care about you, Mike Pence. You're the most irrelevant person in America now, because Trump's still going to cause trouble. Pence ain't going to cause nothing. You're going to run for president in 2024. You're going to get 2 votes. Have at it, Hoss. Okay. Frederick, lots to talk about there. The pardons, Pence, let me let you have at it.
Yeah, I guess working backwards, Pence is no different than Mitch McConnell, who is no different from the rest of the party, right? It's a party full of grifters. Mitch McConnell, finally said that Trump was the person who incited this violence, and then he mentioned other powerful people, and I'm like, oh, that's great. And you are not powerful people, right? Like Mitch McConnell is the same person who didn't acknowledge that Joe Biden was going to be the president, basically until around January 6th, when the Capitol insurrection happened. So Mike Pence and all of them, this is not surprising. And I think that it's important that the leaders of the Democratic Party actually hold them accountable and keep that narrative going, because Americans do have short memories. Now, in terms of Donald Trump's pardons, I think it was really strategic, honestly. Maybe I would have, let Joe Exotic go off. That might have been another way to expand your base a little bit to the Netflix viewers. But realistically, Trump supporters, they want to be lied to, as you said, Cenk. And one thing that's not getting talked about enough is Trump did get more support in this election with most marginalized communities in this country, Latinx community, black men and black women. And I think that from what I've seen already on social media, people are putting into question, black people, well, can Donald Trump be that racist if he just pardoned Kodak Black and Lil Wayne, right? So obviously he is a overt white supremacist, but that move was smart, frankly, because of the short-term memories. And now you get a few black people who might not necessarily be as politically inclined, thinking that Donald Trump, legacy-wise, is not as bad as some make him out to be. So it's an interesting moment, and I think it falls upon, the Dem leadership again to make sure that memories are not that short, and that the narrative about Trump is tried and true.
Yeah, it is such a great point because it goes to a core thing that I think the Democratic Party has been missing for the last 40 years. You've got to make your own case, and people do not read all of the news. So my favorite, I don't know if it's a parable or whatever it is, but of all time is you ask the fish, how's the water? And the fish says, what's water, right? And so Democrats don't get that not everyone reads every story in the New York Times and Washington Post like everybody in Washington does, okay? They see headlines, they see little flashes of news flash before them. So when they see that Trump pardoned Lil Wayne, well, that's gonna leave a mark in a sense, right? And so the theatrics of that politics, Trump actually did get pretty right. It's one of the only things he got right. Run towards the spotlight, yell and scream, repeat things 1,000 times, and do theatrics. And meanwhile, Democrats are on we're better bureaucrats. It's a terrible thing to run on. Terrible. Oh, we're better managers. Congratulations. You know who likes their managers? Look, I'm a manager, so I wish everybody loves their managers. But most people do not like their managers. That's their boss. So Democrats are like, no, don't worry though. We're your boss. And and when we hold review your work and stuff, like that's not good framing. It's not good framing, right? Now, so what Trump does instead is, hey, look at Lil Wayne, Steve Bannon, Duke Cunningham, all the criminals, you're free to go. Go, run. Steal all the money you can and share some of it with me. But hey, everybody, look, Snoop Dogg's in my favor. That Snoop Dogg just came out this morning saying, thank you for pardoning the co-founder of Death Row Records. I mean, look at that, on his way out, he pardons a guy who committed a crime as part of Death Row Records. So I'm telling you though, like it's a rare smart thing that Trump has done just on the politics of, they say I'm racist, how could I be racist? I pardon rappers.
Right. I mean, realistically, Donald Trump was made by the media, and he knows how to outflank the Democrats when it comes to the media and the optics. To be honest, right? So as you said, on his way out and into potentially creating this, quote unquote, Patriot Party, there's going to be this conversation of who were you for said communities, right? And if you could just take that one snippet or that one screenshot of Snoop Dogg saying that, as you said, that's what people are going to run with. They're going to say, well, maybe these people exaggerated, maybe this, maybe that. He did get us, some stimulus money. He tried to get us more stimulus money, right? He made a point on his way out of trying to alter his legacy and seem as if he was the progressive person out of this entire situation, frankly.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. We really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.